What is up, everyone? It's Kanan.
It's Jessie.
And we are the Geeky Saying Couple, and welcome to a new RWBY video. But first, before we get into that, how long has it been since we've done a video together? It feels like it's been like a month. But work's been kicking both of our tails. That's why Jess looks really tired right now. She hasn't even changed out of her work clothes. But before we get onto the video, we got a special announcement for people who don't follow us on Twitter. We made the announcement on Twitter a week or so ago, but I wanted to wait until Jess was actually in a video with me to announce this on the channel. But October 1st, we're finally tying the knot. We are getting married. It's not going to be a big wedding. It is kind of going to be a courthouse deal. It's mostly because right now we just can't afford a big wedding. But we're also not getting any younger. So we decided to do this just to finally get married. And then down the road we'll have the big wedding. But yes, October 1st is the target date. And the very same day we're going to leave and go to the beach for a few days. And yeah.
Originally, we were actually supposed to have our actual wedding this year, but things changed when my mom passed away. So we were trying to speed it up and have it before because of her health and everything,
but we didn't know things were.
We didn't know things got that bad. So we were technically postponing it. So, but then I've lost more people recently. So it's like, you know what? I don't want to. We need to just do this now. And then we're going to have the actual wedding probably next year.
Yeah. So, yes, we are getting married October 1st, so that's the big news. All right, so this is going to be a little mini-series, 4 parts, covering each member of Team RWBY, because, let's face it, in any big story, character development and character growth is one of the most important things to telling a story. You experience it in almost anything, whether it be books, movies, or video games. A character who starts off their journey goes through many changes, and as most times, I think there's a couple of times where, you know, it's a joke story and the character doesn't learn anything. Peter Griffin is one of those characters. That is just one of the first things that popped in my head, even though I don't really watch Family Guy anymore. I'll watch some old episodes every now and then. But yes, characters like that who don't learn anything. But in most classic stories, whether it be long stories like The Odyssey or Lord of the Rings or, you know, anything, Star Wars, all these big long epics, the characters grow and change throughout, and they are not the same character that they were at the beginning of the tale. They've become stronger, smarter, more mature, and each member of Team RWBY has changed. Now, this video is going to be on the team leader, of course, Ruby Rose. Now, out of the 4 main girls, Ruby is considered by many to be the one that has went through the least amount of character change, but I disagree. I think Ruby has went through a lot of changes since Volume 1. Now, also keep in mind this is before Volume 9 has released, and we're not going to include Ice Queendom because we've still not watched it. We're still waiting on the English dub. So this will only be Volume 1 through 8. Now, this is not going to be a retelling of Ruby's story from Volume 1 to 8, but this is just going to talk about how she has changed as a character. Now, this video will hopefully go up on Monday. Wednesday will hopefully be my unboxing of the Y Snidroid. Finally got a hold of it, so that'll be all 4 on the channel. And then, of course, Friday, if everything goes to plan, it'll be the next part of my What If Saint... golly, I cannot talk.
Words are hard.
What If Yang Was a Saiyan series. But okay, so let's talk about RWBY, everyone's favorite team leader, though I think a close second is Coco for a lot of people. But, okay, so I'm going to start by asking you a question. Has RWBY changed as a character?
Yes.
Yes.
She really has. If you go back and watch, like, even if you went back to watch the first episode and the last one of 8, there is a huge difference from where she started to where she is currently. So, I mean, I don't see how there wouldn't be much change. Because it was gradual and it took a while, but she did.
Now, Ruby still has a lot of her original character quirks. She still is kind of the silly kid in some ways. She is still, of course, the youngest member of Team RWBY, even though she is the leader. But Ruby also has become stronger and more, I wouldn't say a whole serious character than she was, but she definitely has matured. Ruby at the beginning of Volume 1 was still very much a kid. When Weiss was calling her a child, Weiss technically was not wrong in a lot of the ways that Ruby was acting. I mean, she sat in class with her pencils up her nose. I believe she did that, didn't she? Didn't she put her pencils up her nose or something like that? She did. She stuck, or she was picking her nose. But Ruby also started off what a lot of people would say was very naive. She starts off like many heroes at the beginning of a story. They have dreams of becoming the hero. They're going to slay the dragon. They're going to bring honor to the family. They're going to bring riches to the village. They're going to get the guy or the girl, you know. She had, and even in Volume 8, Blake even said when she first met her, she did think Ruby was kind of naive in a lot of ways, but did realize that Ruby had a lot of ambition even at an early age. And also, a lot of things about Ruby is, remember, she was not very social. She did not want to make new friends. She said weapons were more fun to get to know than people. But now in the series, Ruby is very open to meeting people and becoming friends. I think a lot of that goes with, you know, not only meeting Weiss and Blake and John and the others, but I think Penny had a very large role in that.
I'm pretty sure that if you look back, Penny really did have a large role in that.
Yeah.
Because once Penny came along, she kind of fell into just befriending her. And then when she found out what Penny really was, she didn't care. It was changing her perspective on talking to people. Not caring. Pretty much not being so antisocial, but not caring what others thought, just befriending people, trying to be nice to everybody. I mean, because that's just how Ruby is.
And if Penny was one side of the coin, Weiss was the other. Because let's remember, in just a few episodes, Ruby went from just wanting to hang out with Yang and stick with Yang and not making new friends to kind of pushing herself. Oh, Weiss, let's become BFFs and all that. She was very drawn to wanting to become Weiss's friend. And then when it came to Penny, Ruby was kind of, this girl's kind of odd, at first, before she finally got to know Penny. And then her and Weiss definitely became friends, but there was a lot of conflict there at first. With Penny, it kind of progressed like a normal friendship usually does.
I think that the moment that Ruby kind of probably started thinking, when Penny repeated, friend?
Yeah.
She didn't understand at first, because Penny didn't have any friends. So,
but she knew what a friend was.
She did know what it was.
The concept of it.
But, I think at that point, Ruby kind of... things started changing in her mind, probably around that moment, because that's a huge moment right there for somebody to be like that, her to say, a friend.
Yeah. So that's already one major character change. Ruby went from someone who didn't care about making friends, didn't care about being the bee's knees. She would rather just spend time talking to her weapon, Crescent Rose, than trying to talk to other people. But really, within one volume, she is wanting to be Weiss's friend. And it might be the stereotype of wanting to be best friends with the cold, rich, older girl, because Weiss is older than Ruby. But then
but that really didn't matter to
me.
No.
It's just a stereotype.
I get what you mean, though. But, just...
She might have thought Weiss was cool, even though she was mean and egocentric at first. I really think it was kind of like she's cool, you know.
And then it get to the point like when Weiss had her little fit about her wanting to be the leader, like Ruby just wanted her to like her at that point. Like you can that's just like all the attempts she just wanted to be her friend at that point. She just wanted Weiss to like her even just a little bit. Like
she had a very strong sense of proving herself to Weiss.
Yeah.
Like she didn't of course she didn't feel like she had to prove herself to her sister, and she did some reason, in those early volumes Blake and Ruby just didn't interact. So they didn't really do much with Blake and Ruby until later volumes. But yeah, with Weiss, it was like Ruby just had this drive to impress her and to, like, I don't know if you want to say gain her approval, but in a way that is kind of what she wanted to do because they're partners. They've got to trust each other. Which, of course, by volume 8, Ruby and Weiss trust each other wholeheartedly. They've both come a very long way since those early volumes. So yeah, you kind of had the rocky friendship with Weiss, because even by volume 3, when Ruby would call Weiss her BFF, Weiss would be like, no, And then you have kind of like the cookies and cream friendship between Ruby and Penny. But then, of course, you got to talk about Jean. Ruby quickly became friends with Jean. But in a way, Ruby also kind of became like Pyrrha in a way in helping Jean get more confidence in himself. Because, you go from one set of episodes of Ruby doubting herself as the leader because of stuff Weiss said, but then sitting in the hallway with Jean and having like a leadership talk with him to gain his confidence. So Ruby kind of did a 180 there a little bit. I kind of blame it on just how volume 1 was, how rushed it was in a lot of ways. But so yeah, you kind of have Ruby flip-flopping from struggling to be a leader to giving Jean a pep talk to get his confidence, and that's where she's also changed. It's in her leadership. Ruby went from, second guessing herself a good few times during those early volumes, but by 4 or 5, and especially 6, she's giving the speeches, she's, rallying the troops, especially like when Crow, on the stealing the Atlas airship in volume 6.
She stood up to him.
Yeah, she stood up to him and just, but it goes with the, also with the apathy, she was the one who fought the apathy the longest. Like, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, and pretty much everyone else were falling victim to it. Ruby stayed out of it the most. Like, she almost fell to it really close, but that's when she almost dropped the lamp into the well, and a jump scare is what caused her to do it. But yeah, by volume 6, that is where I really started. Like, okay, they're really starting to build Ruby as the leader that everyone can get behind. Even Jean, who is a team leader himself, still seems to be amazed at the things Ruby comes up with and what she can do. But then again, she's the main character. She's going to have moments like that, even though there for a while people were wondering, what's going on with Ruby.
And I knew we weren't going to get any other huge development, but it started to show when Maria came into the picture. Mm-hmm. So when Maria started, started making her understand her eyes, that she really is special. Like during the, the apathy when they were in the tunnels, like that was the big moment, and that's where things really would start to change for her again, versus the beginning where she started to change. This was the next part. I mean, obviously, again, she still has a long way to go, but that was the next step, and it changed some things for her.
Well, yeah, for a main character around that time, finding a mentor in a way that kind of has the same abilities as them comes along and helps with their growth. Now, of course, Maria has not done any real in-depth training with Ruby, but she did help Ruby pretty much
start to understand what it was and be able to
use them way more frequently. And I mean, that's no different than Luke meeting Obi-Wan or meeting Yoda, you know, masters of the Force that Luke was learning, or, you know, Goku training under gods and deities and, you know, and all that. Every character goes through that, and they learn from that master the tools they need to continue their journey. And for Ruby, that was gaining control on how to use her silver eyes. Now, of course, once we get into Volume 7 and 8, things start to get a little bit more muddy. You have Ruby making decisions like keeping the truth from Ironwood, which I think anyone who really thinks it through knows that Ironwood was already in the pit of paranoia way before they came there. It was even said by Tyrion when him and Watts were about to go to Atlas. He said if Ironwood came to his senses and called help from Vacuo, things might be bad for them. So they were going to make sure Ironwood fell deeper into paranoia over Salem, which really in the long road still worked. Because, I mean, come on. Ironwood even teamed up with Watts to try and bring Penny back, and that ended up blowing up in his face. Now, one major roadblock that Ruby went on was Volume 8, when her own sister questioned her leadership. Now, this usually happens in a lot of stories where someone close to the main character has a falling out with them. They butt heads, they go separate ways. Turns out things don't... I can't remember what stories have exactly done that, but it's happened. Sarah and Littlefoot in The Land Before Time, they butted heads.
That's actually a good example, though. Like,
yeah, they butted heads, had a little fight, separated.
They weren't exactly sibling, but it was the same representation. Like, they needed that time apart to see things a little bit more clearer before they could come back and actually or mend things.
Yeah, but really, also, that's another place where Ruby has changed. She went from being in the shadow of her older sister in Volume 1, following her around like a lost puppy in a lot of ways, to being very independent to where she can take care of herself. You know, Yang said, you know, you just got to one-up your big sis again, you know? Ruby has become that kind of character to where her once stronger older sibling took care of her to now...
She can take care of herself.
Yeah, and she's even outdoing Yang in a lot of ways. But I think that's another strength of Ruby, of course, is her sisterly bond with Yang, because, I mean, look what eventually ends up happening in Volume 8. But also, we get the reveal of the Hound being a silver-eyed person being transfigured into a Grimm, and that really breaks Ruby for I still think she's keeping it in, but it really affected her because now she thinks that's what's happened to Summer, even though we still don't know exactly what happened to Summer. Hopefully that will be revealed in Volume 9 because we're in a magical world and all that. But, so really at the end of the day, Ruby went from a happy-go-lucky, kind of naive in a lot of ways kid who didn't want to make friends, had no interest in it just because she was socially awkward in a lot of ways, to and also questioning whether she was good enough to be team leader, to being a great team leader, making a lot of friends, actually pushing to make more friends, being more confident in herself, but also having those moments in a character's journey where a lot of bad stuff is happening to her, and only time will tell how Ruby handles it, because she still hasn't had the letting it all go moment. We got maybe a little glimpse of that in the Volume 9 teaser where she started to cry. I think maybe Little will help a little with that, because it does seem like Little is going to be a constant companion to Ruby in Volume 9. So we will see how that goes. But at the end of the day, Ruby has definitely changed. I think for the better from Volume 1 to Volume 8. She still has kept a lot of her core character traits, you know, being silly, still being a kid, you know.
What makes her her?
Yes.
I mean, what makes her RWBY?
Being excited by seeing weapons and huntsmen and huntresses in action. You know, it's still at her core the character she's always meant to be, but she has also grown into where she will eventually be by the end of the series. So I think that's enough on RWBY. Next episode will be on Weiss, and you know we will have a lot to talk about there because many see Weiss as being the one member of Team RWBY who has went through the most changes. She has kept a little bit of herself in a lot of ways, but she has also changed a whole lot. And I'm sure when we get to Blake, Jess will have a lot to say about Blake. I, of course, will have a lot to say about Yang. But yeah, next week we will cover Weiss. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, click that like button, leave a comment. As always, guys, this is Kanan.
This is Jessie.
We love you all very much. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.